Welcome, everyone, to Broadband Breakfast Live Online. Today is Wednesday, May 8th, 2024. My name is Drew Clark. I'm CEO of Broadband Breakfast. I am here in Houston. Actually, they're calling it the Woodlands, right? But it's really Houston. It's just a suburb of Houston at Broadband Communities Summit 2024. I see people I know and they're passing me by as I'm doing the live stream, but I am not going to be your moderator for today. I will be very happy to introduce our able moderator in a few moments. But first, just for those of you who haven't been to a Broadband Breakfast Live Online before, welcome. This is our weekly free webcast that we offer at Broadband Breakfast. We believe in better broadband, better lives, which means we want higher capacity internet, and we want to help in the adoption and use of those tools for broadband deployment. We do this webcast, as I say, every week. We're on a theme of smart cities, which I will say just another word about. But before so, I want to remind you all that in addition to these webcasts, these free webcasts we do, we also produce news and expert opinions that we publish on broadbandbreakfast.com. By joining as a free member of the Broadband Breakfast community, you can get access to 13 stories a month on Broadband Breakfast, and we encourage you to take the plunge and become a Broadband Breakfast Club member for $99 a month or $5.90 a year, and you can get unlimited access to all of the content, 5 to 8 stories a day on the topics that you care about regarding broadband infrastructure, broadband deployment, broadband use, broadband adoption, and the policies like net neutrality, like privacy, like digital discrimination, like bulk billing. Okay, these are the topics that we go deep in Broadband Breakfast in our reporting, our analysis, and we also do for our members exclusive reports every other week. We just did one on net neutrality and the complications around it, and then just earlier last week on smart cities. Okay. And the other thing that we do in addition to reporting and these events is we do events, in-person events. And we came off of the Broadband Measurement Summit about 3 months ago in Washington, D.C. We're going to do our first event outside of D.C. in Sacramento, California, 4 weeks from today, June 5th. Go to broadbandbreakfast.com/CBS for the California Broadband Summit to learn more about this very exciting event. It's a day-long in-person summit. It will be webcast. It will be live streamed as well, but more details to follow. But for now, you can see the 4 panelists plus additional content and topics being addressed during the California Broadband Summit. We are super pleased that we will be partnering, or we are partnering with the Cal Matters Ideas Festival. Our day-long event is part of this 2-day conference at the same venue in Sacramento. The Cal Matters is a nonprofit newsroom based in Sacramento, but covering the whole state. And so it's, obviously, if you care about California, you're going to want to be there. But even if you're interested in broadband generally, it may be of interest to you all. Finally, I want to give huge thanks to the sponsors of Broadband Breakfast. We would not be able to do the events that we do every week without the support of our sponsors. The sponsors of Broadband Breakfast include Utopia Fiber, Comcast, SmartWave, Ookla, Wesco, WISPA, Broadband Without Boundaries, Boost Systems, the Institute for Local Self-Reliance Community Broadband Networks Initiative, and they've recently celebrated their 50th anniversary. Congratulations to ILSR. The California Emerging Technology Fund and Tirana Wireless. We're extremely pleased that CETF and Tirana are also sponsors of the California Broadband Summit coming up on June 5th. Other sponsors of Broadband Breakfast include Broadband Toolkit, Google Fiber, NCTA, Broadband Now, and Network On. Thank you to each of our sponsors. I said just a bit earlier, this month and next month in June, we're doing a bit of a deep dive into smart cities. Last week, for example, we did smart cities and education. This event today is kind of in that theme, smart cities and MDUs, but it may be overtaken by the policy debate around bulk billing. But feel free to talk about smart cities and managed Wi-Fi. I mean, that's one of the big themes here at this conference at Broadband Communities is managed Wi-Fi and the role of managed Wi-Fi in MDUs. And I don't know what the panelists' view on how that impacts bulk billing or other aspects pertaining to multiple dwelling units, but feel free to kind of talk about that smart city component. Next week, we're talking about transportation and smart cities. On the 29th, we're going to be talking about healthcare and smart cities. On the 12th, 12th of June, that is, digital inclusion and smart cities. And then on the 26th of June, spectrum policy and smart cities. So a lot of discussion around smart cities. We were so happy to have a discussion about this last week. And again, we look forward to the continuation of that here today. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to all of the panelists as well as our moderator, whom I will introduce. He will then introduce the panelists. Very happy to have on this discussion. You might have recognized him from 2 weeks ago, and he's also been on some others. Ted Hearn. Ted is a senior editor at Broadband Breakfast. He's also editor and publisher of Policy Band, a new website dedicated to comprehensive coverage of the broadband communications market. Very pleased to be able to turn it over to you, Ted, to lead this discussion on this very important topic. So over to you, Ted.
Oh, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for that nice introduction, Drew. As smart home technology rapidly integrates into urban living, innovative solutions are emerging to cater to the unique needs of multiple households under one roof. While this evolution is contingent on having robust broadband infrastructure in place, regulatory policies such as a proposed ban on bulk billing have recently become controversial under Federal Communications Commission Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel. What's the optimal way to deliver high-speed internet access across these multi-unit residential buildings? How does bulk billing factor into the economies of MDUs? What role does Wi-Fi have in the equation? Those are some of the topics and questions we'll explore over the next 50 minutes or so. Let me introduce our great panel. Daniel Myers, President, Dojo Networks. Ross Lieberman, Senior Vice President of Government Affairs, Hotwire Communications. Brian Rader, President of MDU, Pavlov Media. And Philip Cantor, Vice President, General Counsel, Bluestream Communications. The plan is for each of our guests to speak for a few minutes about his organization and discuss the MDU environment and broadband generally. And then we'll turn to some Q&A from me and from people who submit questions. Daniel, let's start with you.
Sure. Thanks for having me. So I've been doing MDUs since 2000, so 24 years of delivering broadband to MDUs. Initially, we were delivering Ethernet to every apartment, either Ethernet or over DSL into those MDUs, actually. And what we found in 2004 when Wi-Fi, we started delivering Wi-Fi to residential units, we found that with so much Wi-Fi, so many access points in this very condensed space that you were dealing with Wi-Fi interference. And what we found is the only way to solve that and to deliver a really good experience to residents was by managing the RF spectrum. So you were managing the spectrum throughout these MDUs, and it did a couple of things. So by putting an access point in every apartment and in common spaces, you were able to use multiple different frequencies to reach through the different building materials to give this comprehensive coverage throughout the MDU. And you built a system that also allowed residents to be in their own private, secure VLAN, so an encrypted connection that they could roam throughout the property. Today, we're also solving for Wi-Fi calling using something called Passpoint. So where there's not great cellular coverage in the unit, it makes it really easy for their phones to do Wi-Fi calling over this Wi-Fi network that we're deploying in MDUs. So we found great adoption at that, and it's been going fast. So owners like it because they can also deploy things like asset protection across the same network, things like leak detection, things like smart thermostats, camera systems, and whatnot. So you're leveraging this infrastructure that you're putting into these units. We're bringing fiber into the property. It's a fiber-based network, either fiber to the unit or Cat6A to the unit that you're powering these access points on. So it's a very stable system. You're getting investment to deploy this next-gen technology to really deliver a phenomenal experience down to the resident.
Interesting. Daniel, thanks for that. Ross?
Thanks, Ted. Well, thanks, Drew, and thanks, Ted, for having me on Broadband Breakfast. I've been a fan for a long time. It's nice to make my debut on a Wednesday webinar. I'm with Hotwire Communications. We deliver broadband video and voice services to residential and commercial properties, primarily through bulk billing arrangements. We've been in existence for about 25 years. We've spent more than $2 billion on providing fiber infrastructure that we deliver our services over, and we do it, and it's over fiber infrastructure that we own and operate. We offer consumers a competitive option from incumbent providers, as well as we compete with small and regional providers throughout the country. Today, we're operating in 10 states where we're providing services to. We primarily serve homeowners associations and condo associations. We have hundreds of thousands of customers. We serve more than 1,500 communities. Again, we've been doing this for more than 20 years. And so we got our start. Kristen Johnson, our current CEO, got started 20 years ago as a result of consumers in apartment buildings and community associations being frustrated with the choices that they have available. Oftentimes in these environments, there's aging wire, limited choices, and higher prices. And these communities were looking for alternatives. And back in the day, Hotwire was able to enter into its first agreement, where it was able to enter into a bulk billing arrangement where it agreed to upgrade the network to fiber services. It agreed to do it at a lower price, and in exchange, the property agreed to pay the bill for all the residents and do so over a fixed term. This was an arrangement that worked well for both Hotwire as well as the consumers. And basically, that's been the model that Hotwire has used to enter into its 1,500 communities it does today. Consumers like it because they get the fiber services, they get deeply discounted prices, they get guaranteed customer service standards as well as performance standards. And so it's really been a win-win, and we're glad to be here to discuss what we find to be sort of a misguided approach by the FCC to ban what we believe is consumers using bulk billing to actually try to advance their interests in a marketplace that otherwise hasn't been able to serve them well.
Great. Thanks, Ross. Brian.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Rader. Really happy to be here with you and with Drew and the team that you've brought together. I'm the president of Pavlov Media's MDU team. We have over 1,500 multifamily communities throughout the country. The company was founded in 1994 at the University of Illinois in our founder's dorm room, and has grown over the last 30 or so years to be what we are today. We built our business around multifamily. As the other panelists have said, there was a gap in the marketplace, whether it was wiring related, whether it was other infrastructure or customer support related. There was a need and a demand to provide an alternative to the incumbent providers nationally, not just in Champaign, Illinois, where we were founded, but in markets like Atlanta and Denver and Chicago and South Florida. And so over the last 20 or so years, we've seen a real expansion of bulk providers like Pavlov, many of whom are doing fiber to the home and many that are doing bulk managed Wi-Fi today. And it's a marketplace that benefits not only the high-end HOAs in South Florida, for instance, but for us, we have a large number of communities that we would consider low-income housing or affordable housing that are benefiting by having a very inexpensive bulk product that is passed through to the resident at no charge. And so one of the things that we believe very strongly in is that bulk has been a benefit to closing the digital divide and the gap between the haves and those that have not been able to enjoy the internet experience. And Pavlov, among others, have been very supportive of using bulk in that effort to drive adoption in affordable housing apartment communities. And thrilled to be here. Look forward to talking about the FCC and some of the proposed or expected plans that are potentially coming out of the regulatory agency.
Interesting. Thanks, Brian. Now let's turn to Philip Cantor.
Vice President, Coral Springs, Florida, Broward County. We, like everyone else, use bulk billing primarily. We serve cable, video, internet, phone service via fiber to the home. We have been very surprised with this FCC notice, or at least the announcement from the chairwoman over 2 months ago, because we really don't see how the market has changed. In fact, we think the market has made it even more competitive. We see 3, 4, 5 companies come to each condominium, each homeowners association, each MDU to compete, causing the price to come down, causing service to get better, causing the equipment to get better, and you know what everybody has to do to get business. We think with it opt out or without bulk billing, it'll cause uncertainty in the business and it won't be good for the consumers. In fact, the FCC has recently said many times that bulk billing is good. So we look forward to talking about this and answering any questions.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thanks, Philip. Well, Chairwoman Rosenworcel has a plan out there that would ban bulk billing for, let's say, internet service in the MTE, MDU environment. And it's her position that that people should be able to opt out of these agreements, and I suppose not have to pay, so that they can obtain internet service from a different provider. What's wrong with that proposal, Daniel?
Yeah, well, so the cost to deliver the service, you're lowering the price based on the fact that you have 100% penetration. So it'll push everyone's price up. So either everyone's going to pay more, or the property is going to pay the same, whether they have one customer or they have 100% of the customers. So their price, because the cost to deliver the fiber, the cost to support all the equipment that you're deploying to put in this community-wide, property-wide network, the same. That doesn't change. So allowing one person or two people to opt out, or who knows what percentage to opt out, it just doesn't make a lot of sense, because when you deploy managed Wi-Fi specifically, managed Wi-Fi works because it's deployed ubiquitously throughout the property. It's not you're turning it on in some of the units and not on in some of the others. It's everywhere.
Interesting. Ross.
I agree with what a lot of Dan said. I mean, if you look at the current marketplace for apartments or for homeowners and condo associations, where bulk isn't, what you see is retail prices that are oftentimes starkly higher than what's available in bulk billing arrangements. You see, technology that lacks the same performance that you do see in bulk billing arrangements. And so, if you're going to pass a rule that says that you allow opt out, you're essentially relegating that property back to a retail environment where the provider is offering the services and not sure about how many customers they're going to have. Therefore, you eliminate, by allowing opt-out, a lot of the cost savings, which include the economy of scale savings, programming prices for video. You get starkly discounted programming prices from programmers when you offer it to all of the residents. If a customer opts out, you lose those benefits. You lose that option of using that provision in those contracts, and your prices drastically go up. Those costs will have to be passed along to consumers. Not having to worry about opt-out, you get reduced marketing and sales expenses. When you're getting financing to build out, the prices there's a number of different cost savings that you get through the bulk billing arrangements that will be lost, that will result in consumers having to pay higher prices. And ultimately, it will make it much more challenging for smaller providers ultimately to compete against the incumbent providers in these buildings. So for all of these reasons, opt-out is really sort of a big problem, and it's not a kind of harmless alternative to bulk.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Ross. Let's turn to Brian.
So first of all, this did not begin with the FCC or with Chairperson Rosenworcel. It began at the White House, and the White House presented this as a political issue, not a telecom or regulatory issue. It started as a way to address junk fees. And there's an attack on numerous industries, which I think makes a lot of sense for transparency and to do away with NSF fees and late fees and junk fees and application fees for consumers, for middle America consumers. And as part of that, this discussion became an issue that the White House said, in doing this, I want apartment residents to have choice, to be able to get the best service, and they should be able to pick and choose what they want. The problem with that, as the others have said, is that on a retail basis, consumers would pay anywhere from $80 to $120 a month for an internet product that comes with fees. The entire point of this was to do away with fees. And we are now in a situation that if we drop bulk, every consumer in every multifamily community will now have choice, but they will pay an installation fee, a deposit, a credit check, an application. They'll have to rent equipment potentially. Those are all fees that do not exist in bulk agreements today. There's only one fee, and that's for service and for support and for the product itself. And it's wrapped in a bulk rate, so it's a significant discount. We were at the FCC last week, and we met with 4 of the 5 commissioners' offices. I will say at a high level, they're very engaged on this topic today. It didn't start with them, but they're now tagged with having to address this in some way. There is an NPRM that is circulating, and we don't know if that will be released this week or at all, but we're certainly preparing for it. I was impressed with their interest in listening, understanding that this is, they're getting letters from and opinions from every affordable housing association, from the National Multi-Housing Council, from the National Apartment Association, from the Cable Industry Association, the Wireless Association. We're part of 2 coalition groups of independent ISPs that are obviously against banning bulk. And I think that they're realizing now that this is a real challenge, that it has done more good than harm. And one last thing I'd like to quickly mention before passing the baton. We met with the Consumer Wireline Bureau, and they said that one of the biggest complaints they get at the FCC is that apartment residents are stuck in a bulk agreement and can't get out. And so we asked, is that related to TV or internet? They said, we have no idea. Are those complaints about the big cable companies or the big telephone companies or independents? They said, we have no idea. But we get those complaints, and frankly, it's one of the more common complaints we get here at the FCC. It's clear that they don't have the data that says we need to opt out or we need to get rid of bulk agreements. The thing that they asked us was, what would your product cost on a retail basis, and what is a general average price you charge today? I'll speak at a very high level for our industry, and some of the answers presented in the meetings last week. On a per unit basis, internet alone, as Dan talked about, using the managed Wi-Fi platform as a typical architecture, typical rate anywhere from $15 a unit to $25 a unit, depending on 50 different variables: high rise, garden style, infrastructure investment, things of that nature. On a retail basis, that same product would be over $80 a month. There's an install fee, there's a late fee, there's a credit check fee, there's an equipment deposit, there's a Wi-Fi router rental fee of $12 for to pick your provider.
Interesting.
So
Brian,
we're 75% cheaper.
Let me just interject one point here, and that is for $15 a month or $25 a month, what kind of speeds are you getting?
We at a minimum, and I'm speaking beyond Pavlov, and I think Dojo would be in the same category. Many of our peers would be saying the same thing. At a minimum, it's 1 gig symmetrical to every user on the community, including wired and wireless. Now, wireless is not 1 gig, but that service is inclusive of the wireless experience and wired as well.
Interesting. Okay, thank you, Brian. Philip.
Yeah, I agree with the discussions that we've had. And I agree with Brian that the FCC has been very attentive, very asking lots of questions. The question that we haven't heard yet from anybody at the FCC is, what do they exactly mean about eliminating bulk billing arrangements? Because at times they talk about, they say that they impose on tenants that impose a specific broadband service provider for their household. Well, that seems to me like only apartment complexes. But over the years, they've talked about MDUs and MTEs, and they seem to be the same as whether you're an apartment complex, a condominium, a homeowners association, or anything else. So we really haven't gotten a better understanding of what they're looking at. So that's the big question we've had with talking to the FCC staff members, is we haven't seen an NPRM, a notice of proposed rulemaking, so we're not exactly certain what we're arguing against. So that would help us a lot. As you said, there have been comments from various House members to the FCC, and of course, the chairwoman has basically said the same thing. They're looking at apartments, condominiums, and other multi-tenant buildings. But again, if you allow them to opt out or ban bulk billing, their pricing is going to skyrocket, and that's not good for any consumer.
Right. I've read in some of the communications sent to the FCC that the biggest impact of a bulk billing ban would be felt by seniors, low income people, minority groups who tend to have housing in MDUs and people generally on fixed income. Is that a correct assessment? Why don't we start with you, Ross, this time?
It's 100% a correct assessment, particularly from our understanding of the market, as well as for our customers. We serve we serve many customers in California, which obviously is a more senior focused state for various reasons. Many of our customers are on fixed incomes, and the bulk billing arrangements and its steeply discounted prices and its predictability in terms of price increases, because it's not just the low prices, but what these homeowners and condo associations do is they not just negotiate what the price is, but the rate increases. So you have not only low prices, but you have stability and predictability over the course of the term of the agreement. And this is very favorable to seniors. It's very favorable to students. It's very favorable to low-income folks who benefit from the low prices and the stability. And if you eliminate bulk billing, if you allow an opt-out, there's really no choice but for broadband providers to reassess the prices that they're charging and readjust it higher. You just can't continue to offer the same discounted prices that you are offering under a guaranteed contract without that guarantee anymore. And so we're disappointed that this rulemaking is creating angst, confusion, frustration for a lot of customers today over what this is going to mean for their prices. And we're trying to kind of message to them like, this will be okay. We'll work this out. But honestly, a lot of them are fearful what this is going to mean for their budgets moving forward.
Interesting. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, so owners obviously are very concerned about their resident experience. So I think Brian and some of the others talked about the SLA. So when you bring in an MSO, or if that's the only option for your residents, one, there's all these junk fees below the line. Your price is this, and then they add all of these extra fees that you weren't expecting on your bill. With us, the price is the price. With ACP going away, and even when ACP was there, it didn't even assist managed Wi-Fi systems. There was no way to take advantage. So that was a big problem with ACP in the affordable space, right? So we're doing lots of affordable housing in New York. I helped HPD write the spec, which HCR adopted, NYCHA adopted, and now Connect All throughout New York, where it's a minimum of 100 by 100 in affordable housing has to be included as part of their housing, that they have internet, that they have access, and a managed Wi-Fi system so they can roam throughout their building. So, from the SLA standpoint, these owners have no control over the provider if they're going out and getting themselves. They want their residents to have this great experience. They want it to be frictionless. So with us and with a number of other providers, when they move in, we automatically onboard them. They automatically have an account. It's frictionless. They're online right away. They don't have to wait for the guy to come do an installation. They don't have to wait around, miss work or things like that. So these systems work better. The resident experience is much better, and it's much cheaper. Like I said, it's much cheaper even than what ACP was providing when that was around. So.
Great. Thank you. Brian.
Yeah, I would echo everything that Dan said. I agree. I think the friction at move-in is a stressful time for every apartment resident. The ability to have your service on the moment you sign your lease is really important. The other thing in low-income housing, we have what I would call internet first-timers, seniors in affordable housing and low-income single-parent situations, difficult housing arrangements. And these are residents that in many cases have never been online. And so it's not just providing them access, it's providing them support. Whether that's through tech support, customer support, or in-person support. And I think that happens in a bulk environment. When we design and propose overbuilding a network, we don't bill 90-ish% of the apartment homes. We have to bill 100%. The economic program is designed around 100% of the units. And so to go into any version of variability would work against that economic structure. And then we go back to the way it used to be, which is you have big cable and big telco offering services at retail prices. Residents would have choice, but they would not have fiber. They would not have managed Wi-Fi, and they would be living in communities with 1980s infrastructure in many cases, paying 2024 pricing.
Interesting. Philip. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Being in Florida, we see the senior citizen residents a lot. Our CEO has spoken when we've talked to the FCC staff that he uses one of his, as an example, that's one, about 9,000 residents, about 4,500 condominiums. And they're, again, angst about this whole thing. We've worked with them since about 2018, sorry. And they've gone from only having cable to where we have both cable and internet with them. Prior to us joining them, they had about 60% internet. They now have almost 100% internet, and they're getting both services for probably the price of one, if not less than one. They're worried that if this bulk goes away and a lot of opt out, if there's any, they'll lose a service or two. They may not, be on, strict budgets and may not be able to afford both services, which would be terrible for them. And as mentioned already, we've had a lot of questions about ACP from the staff. And, we said, look, unfortunately, bulk didn't fit with ACP. We sent information to the FCC about that. We were starting to have conversations with them to fix that. And then, of course, ACP's gone away. So, but we've told all the staff that, if they come back with it and it gets refunded, we'd be very willing to help figure out a way to allow bulk billing to be used for this ACP.
Great, thanks. Ross, Drew promised that I would push back a little bit on the industry panelists to defend Chairwoman Rosenworcel's ideas here a bit. And in doing so, let me just quote from a filing made by Horry Telephone Cooperative, which said that bulk billing is susceptible to abuse, resulting in higher costs for consumers than they otherwise would have. Horry gave an example in which a subdivision developer has contracted with an internet service provider before the homes are even constructed without putting the project out for bid to local service providers. In a situation like this, Horry says, the community's HOA once formed is locked into a multi-year contract that could very well be more expensive than if the HOA itself had solicited and compared bulk billing packages. If you got all that, I just wanted to know, is that unusual? Horry says the commission should, put out the notice of proposed rulemaking and seek comment on some of these practices. Has Horry identified a real issue here, or is this something that maybe they bumped into and is not really, replicated throughout the industry? Why don't we start with Brian this time?
Okay, I was hoping you were going to start with Ross, but I'll take this one.
I'll be glad to start, Brian, if you want.
Well, I'll just say real quick that example feels like a one-off. Our agreements, our industry's agreements are generally 5 years, sometimes 7, depending on variety of situations. They're rebid every 5 years. It's highly competitive. We compete with everybody on this panel. There are dozens of bulk internet providers. That is a one-off example that I don't see in the marketplace today.
Good. Ross.
Yeah, so first I start with by noting that Horry Telecom supports bulk billing. They said it in their letter, right? And their concerns with bulk billing has nothing to do with supporting opt-out as an option. I assume that if they were pressed on that issue, they would say that opt-out is disruptive to bulk billing arrangements. I'd start by saying that. And I think Brian is right as a second point. This is a highly competitive marketplace. Not everybody wins every deal. And, that's sort of the life of being a bulk billing provider. Third, I'd note that in many, many states, there are rules that protect homeowners associations and condo associations where they have to agree to any agreements reached by a developer. And that provides the consumer protections. And a lot of these issues related to HOAs and COAs are really HOA and COA issues. And they relate to many, many services that may be, part of living in those types of arrangements. And they, of be handled on the state or local level and not by the FCC. So I think that for all of these, and let me finally just say, it's like, and I think Brian pointed it out, and I agree with it. I mean, this is like a one-off issue. There's no doubt in any market, for any arrangement, there's going to be somebody who's unsatisfied. The question is there enough unsatisfaction in order to kind of adopt a rule that applies broadly in every situation? And I think the fact that there is no real evidence in the record that I could find, and the record's been open since 2017, that demonstrates that there's really any problem with the bulk billing arrangements. I understand that the chairwoman and maybe in our meetings, they've claimed that people have complained, but honestly, that's different from any of the experiences that Hotwire has in all of its relationships. I think I can speak broadly for the industry. These things are one-off issues and not the basis on which to adopt a rule that bans a practice that actually consumers want to use in order to get better services for themselves than they otherwise could get on their own.
Good. Thanks, Ross. Brian.
Well, I would echo that. I just see a comment coming through from a gentleman named Mike McCarthy. I didn't know that the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys cared about bulk internet, but I'm happy that he does, and I appreciate, maybe we'll have an opportunity to answer his questions.
Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have a lot to say on this topic that hasn't already been said. Like you said, in Florida, you know, if a builder or a developer gets into a contract and the HOA, when they take over, don't ratify it, it becomes moot. So, I mean, different states have protections against this, and it's not really penalize the providers because of something like that. Most of the projects that we're doing, you know, they're put out to bid. Not all, some we've built a relationship with a developer or an owner, and they know that our pricing is comparable in the marketplace, and, you know, they like what it is that we deliver. And so, you know, they use us generally on a lot of their projects, you know, but we're earning their business and we're earning their residents' business every day. You know, we did talk about the SLAs that are in a bunch of these contracts, but, you know, our company support and service is our number one thing. That's our DNA in our business. We're answering our call in under 15 seconds with a human. I mean, that is something that we look at. We look at these KPIs daily, right, to make sure that we're meeting them. Our average ticket is solved in under 10 minutes. Less than 0.5% of our customers actually open a support ticket on a rolling 12-month basis. You know, these other large telecoms, you know, you're lucky if you're talking to somebody in 45 minutes or an hour, and sometimes they drop your call before you talk to someone. So, and you kind of have no recourse. So that service and support that these companies like Brian's and Hotwire and Bluestream are delivering, it's just far in excess of what the big telecoms that you want to that the FCC potentially wants to relegate everyone to have for their options.
Good. Thanks, Daniel. Well, here's a question from someone watching on YouTube. How difficult is it for MDU residents to obtain the information about comparable services and prices? Ross, any thoughts on that?
Broadband labels. I think the FCC has addressed that issue by requiring retail broadband services to have labels. I don't think consumers have a problem figuring out what services are available or the prices or speeds that are available to them.
Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, so there's lots of options, right? So whether you're getting so we're typically a second provider or a third provider available at a property. I mean, we may be the bulk provider, but they can go out and get the telecom, they can go out and get the MSO, or they can go out and get 5G if they want to get 5G from Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. So they have lots of options, and in no case are we exclusive anywhere that they have to take this service.
Mm-hmm. Brian?
Real quick. So we recently, or we're about to launch a community that has a big cable provider and a big telephone provider also available on a retail basis. And the ownership group asked us to provide, this is all online available, general information on pricing from the other companies, so that if we're offering a 1 gigabit product and it's included in rent, what is the value of that? And we believe it's an average of $80 to $90 a month. So that type of information is provided through ownership.
Mhm. Very good. Daniel,
I think I just went.
I apologize. Who did I leave out? Philip.
No, again, FCC's been pretty clear that exclusive contracts are prohibited. They made some moves about that just a couple years ago. So always easy, as you said, the broadband labels. You can go on any website and get what the prices are. So it should be pretty easy to get that. You know, when I hear about opt-out, I've been to various meetings where, you know, we talk to the associations about it, and people go, well, why can't I opt out? And, you know, and other people in the room, not even us, will look at them and go, you know, if you opt out, you're gonna pay double. And they go, oh, really? Oh, okay. And that's all you hear about it. You don't hear anything further about that.
Mhm. Interesting. So in our remaining moments, I wanted to just touch on a couple of subjects. Daniel, Dojo Networks wanted to see the FCC, or you submitted a letter, and you basically said, if the FCC goes forward with this bulk billing ban, you'd like to see some guardrails. Could you discuss what you mean by guardrails?
Well, and I didn't say, I said instead of. It's not if they go forward with it. So, I mean, the issue is, I mean, I think there's probably some bad owners out there, right? So when I say bad owners, or they have bad systems, maybe they didn't do and put in ubiquitous coverage, or maybe they're not offering more than 10 or 15 megabits, and they're charging $120 or $130 for their internet. So when I say guardrails, what I'm saying is, hey, if you're going to do bulk billing, it has to be these minimums, and maybe it's 100 by 120 or 100 by 20 or 100 by 100 as a minimum attainable speed, and that the pricing shouldn't be more than what you can get for a comparable service in the market. So you're delivering, you know, a good service for a good price, and you're not overcharging, and you're not delivering a service that isn't any good. And, you know, who would enforce that? What's the enforcement arm? You know, potentially the enforcement arm would be the attorney general of the state, that if you get enough complaints out of a building, the state attorney general investigates it and deals with it.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to address that point?
Well, I would like to add that there are roughly 35 million MTE units or multifamily units in America today. That includes senior living, student housing, and conventional apartment communities throughout the country. 10 years ago, 95% of those units were supported by big cable companies and big telephone companies. And today that number as a share has dropped dramatically. We believe it's probably 75% market share, which means that companies like Hotwire and Bluestream and Dojo and Pavlov Media are truly bringing competition into the marketplace that didn't exist before. And we are all doing that on the backs of bulk internet at significant discounts for consumers. If that goes away, we go back to a 95% market share to the incumbents. And that's exactly what the FCC does not want to happen.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else before I move on? Okay.
I just say, look,
Mm-hmm.
there's this perception, I think the FCC approaches this from, that there's a problem with bulk billing and it's the operator who is sort of causing it. And I think that's a misunderstanding of what these bulk billing arrangements are all about. It's about the consumer in these properties that are benefiting from, whether or not it's the property owner aggregating the buying power of the residents, or the homeowners or community associations themselves that are looking for alternatives to what they already have, which is typically one or two providers offering retail prices, if not higher. They are the ones that are putting out an RFP, saying exactly what they want, fiber, saying that they want what the prices they want to charge, what their SLAs should be. And there's operators just like us on the call that are responding to those RFPs and competing against each other in order to win that business. This is a level of competition that any individual customer would die for, Can you imagine a consumer having 5 or 6 different options of folks offering either managed Wi-Fi or fiber? This is actually a reaction to a broken market where consumers are empowering themselves over what is otherwise available. That's why it's frustrating that the FCC doesn't appreciate this and that they're seeking to ban it and sending consumers back to otherwise a market that is not serving customers as well.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
I agree with what Ross is saying there. And I mean, from this competition standpoint, also, a lot of us don't do annual escalators. Like their price is their price. And so, the other big companies, they have annual escalators kind of built in and gamified in their systems. We don't do that. And we're all looking to bring their price down as low as possible over time.
And what we've been trying to find out from the FCC is, where's the big complaint? Who's making this uproar that there's a problem here on bulk billing when, we've been told from others, who aren't in a bulk billing going, why can't we get that kind of service? Why can't we get that price? Why can't we get that top video, that top internet service with the SLAs that you're getting?
Right. We have about 9 minutes left. So let's try and do kind of a lightning round here. Let's include everybody. If the FCC goes forward with this, do we all agree we'll see litigation? Okay.
Surprise me. Because I think their support would be arbitrary and capricious, and they wouldn't have enough complaint and enough background to disregard what the FCC stated in 2010 that bulk billing is good.
Okay, I don't see anyone disagreeing with that. Now, another idea I've seen is that if the FCC goes forward, it should grandfather existing bulk billing deals. What's the reaction to that? Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, so if they pass whatever they pass, I mean, we'll work to figure it out. I mean, we don't know what it is today, so it's hard to say what won't happen. Should existing contracts be, because they're messing with business to business contracts. Like our contract is not with the resident. Our contract is with another business. And how that business decides to offer services to their residents, that's not between us and them. Now we support their residents. We have a relationship that if those residents, they know who we are and we have their information to be able to support them when they call in for support, but they're not paying us directly. So, how they can come in and, like I said, invalidate a legal contract, I struggle with that.
One thing,
sorry, Brian.
Real quick, one thing I did hear at the FCC last week is that they do not want to have separate rules for grandfathered MDUs and for new MDUs. The rules will be the rules for all MDU or MTEs. So we're not looking at having bifurcated rule structure. Whatever does get passed will be passed for all MDUs, and we will have to comply with that reality, whatever that is.
Couldn't they adopt a rule that just says it applies to all MDUs, but it's prospective to new contracts?
No, I think we will have a window of time, probably 180 days to comply. We just went through this 2 years ago with exclusive marketing agreements, and they gave property owners 180 days to comply, or not the owners, but the operators, and that's likely what would happen here.
Ross, I mean, it sounds like something like that. You'd almost want to go in for an injunction if that happens. Ross, what do you think about the grandfather idea?
What I think is that this is a bad idea. What I think is a bad idea is banning bulk billing, whether or not it's done retroactively or prospectively. I'm not in a position today to start to negotiate over of how to modify it to be satisfactory. This is just a bad idea that I'm ultimately confident that the FCC will recognize if it soon, if not throughout this process.
Philip.
I agree. I I think that it's a bad idea, whether, as you said, perspective or going forward or however they do it, and it shouldn't be done.
Mhm. You know, one thing I didn't understand is how can you sign deals with 100% penetration in a building, let's say, and there's no exclusivity element. I know the commission bans certain exclusivity arrangements, but I'm just wondering, how does something like that work? How do you guarantee 100% penetration without exclusivity?
Well, I
Well,
think.
Go ahead, Brian.
Go
All
ahead,
right,
Brian.
I'll give the non-legal answer, Ross, if you want to give
No,
it.
no.
I was going to quickly say that we have different networks inside the building. So there is coax, there is Ethernet from the phone company, there's coax from the cable company, and those wires are not being used by us. So there is, technically our service is not exclusive into the building, but it does cover 100% of the apartment homes in the community.
Ross, were you going to say
Yeah,
something?
no, exclusivity has been traditionally, the ban on exclusivity has been about building owners. Well, it's been about providers entering into agreements with property owners saying no other provider is permitted to enter into the building, right? Bulk billing is an agreement between the provider and the property saying you'll agree to pay us on behalf of all the residents in the building. So a lot of times when a bulk billing arrangement turns over from one provider to the next, the existing provider is already in the building. They have every right to continue selling their services to the customers. Yes, the property is still paying for the services on behalf of all the customers, but the individual customer can choose to subscribe to any services available to them.
Mhm. Anybody else?
If someone wants to put up a dish and
Yeah.
they used to, they wanted to get a specific sports channel from someplace that they wouldn't get in Florida, and that they put up a dish and they do both.
Mhm. Interesting. Okay, go ahead.
I would add, so the incumbents put language in their agreements to be anti-competitive. And so it was a cat and mouse game between the incumbents and the FCC to continually, and the incumbents would write language to make it so that someone else couldn't come in, couldn't have access, so that they could keep renewing their agreements. And that was very anti-competitive. And the incumbents being the cable companies and the big telcos, trying to keep companies like us out from coming in and providing much more affordable and better technology solutions to the residents.
Mhm. Okay. Well, we just have a couple of minutes left, and did someone want to have a word? That I didn't cut anybody off. Just a couple of minutes left. It's been my observation that the political support and the industry support, let's just say that the Rosenworcel plan is lacking. Major support. In fact, there's been very little support for her plan. Are you surprised by that? And do you think that there's a good chance that one of her Democratic colleagues will want to hit the pause button on this idea? So again, we got about 2 minutes, so let's keep it short. Thank you, guys.
I'll go first. I think that there's a reason why the press release went out in early March, and they thought there was a lot of momentum to do this quickly. We're here in the second week of May, and it hasn't happened yet. And I think they are already on some, I wouldn't call it a pause, but a delay. It hasn't happened as quickly as they expected. The NPRM was likely drafted at the end of March, and here we are 6 weeks later, and nothing's happened. I think they're in education mode. I think they are really trying to understand the impacts of this, and they're genuinely listening and engaged on this topic.
Well, what we've heard is that there hasn't been a third vote in favor of the NPRM, and maybe that's the pause right now. We've been told a couple times that at least our state, Florida, every word from Florida has been, "Do not do this."
Anybody else? So I just one quick follow-up. Do you see this coming to a vote?
Well, I think the next step would be for them if they, yes, I think that they're trying to get that third vote on party line and release the NPRM.
Mhm.
Well, one
Anybody
word
else?
we've heard is maybe what they'll do is not do an NPRM, but at least do a notice of inquiry first to see what the support is out there. And if there is enough complaints to support the chairwoman's proposal.
Mhm. All right. Well, we've hit 1 o'clock, and let me just thank our great panel for a really lively conversation on a very interesting topic. And please join us next week. We hope to see you at noon Eastern Time next Wednesday, May 15th, for a new edition of Broadband Live Online Smart Cities. Thanks, everybody.